So I have a bunch of containers with spare little decorations, die cuts, sentiments that I've used from previous projects, and they are starting to really mount up. So what I thought I would do is challenge myself to tip out everything that I have in each container and then figure out a way to make it work on some cards. One of the things that I have is these cut aparts that say stay humble and hustle hard. It's a little bit of an odd statement to me and not something that I would really use on a card. And I tried to find a circle that was the exact size that would allow me to cover it up, but still have a black border. The best I can do is this. There is a little bit of white around the edge, so I thought maybe what I'll do is just get a black marker and color it in so it's a little bit less obvious. And then I'm going to stamp happy birthday, thank you, a sentiment that I would use more readily on top of this. And then I'm going to mat this on white paper, and there's 20, so that will create 20 embellishments that I can use on a card. Now to create these circles, I actually used this Thinlits pack. This is from Tim Holtz, and it's basically 25 dies. There's 5 different sizes of circles, and there's 5 of each. So if you're ever mass producing anything, or if you're ever trying to create bulk, then because you have 5 of the same size circle, you can run them through your die cut machine really quickly. So for me, I was doing 20 of these. I only had to do 4 passes through my die cut machine to get the 20 circles. So it was super, super quick. Highly recommend this, and I'll put a link below. Okay, so I'm going to prepare my sentiments, or my sentiment circles. I'm laying them all out on my very, very messy workspace here, but I have a Make-A-Wish stamp, and I'm going to just use my VersaFine ink pad. It's Onyx Black. And I find using this and a stamping block much quicker when I'm doing sentiments. I always use a pigment-based ink for sentiments where possible. I just find I'm more likely to get a clean stamp first try. When I ran through here, there were a few of these that did not end up a perfect stamp. And what I would use those for is to double layer a sentiment to give it a little bit more height so they don't go to waste, and I find that most of the time I get a pretty good stamp and there's very few errors. This is just quicker than using my MISTI is what I've found. You'll also notice that I'm doing far more circles than the 20 that I need for my current project. While I am trying to get rid of lots of my little bits and pieces that I've built up over time, I am quite comfortable having extra circle sentiments, square sentiments, and the little narrow ones that are smaller rectangles, because I find that if I just need to add something to a card to finish it off, these will always get used. So there are some to complete the little die cuts for my current project, and then there are extras that I can use another day. I'm just running through and I'm putting some of my ATG on the back of the die cuts. And for this, I'm going to use some of my cheaper white cardstock. It's about 200 GSM. When I'm doing a die cut of this size, I will try and use scrap. So as I start to add these to white cardstock, you will see that they're all different shapes and sizes. The strategy that I use when matting rectangles like this is, rather than trying to cut the rectangle to the right size to start with and then line it up perfectly, I actually attach it to a piece of paper that's bigger than what I need, and then I trim it off. If I do it the other way, I find that I always end up having to trim it anyway. I really cannot stand having imbalanced mats, and by doing it this way, I can decide how big I want it to be irrespective of the measurement. Then I just use my Tim Holtz paper trimmer to finish it off as a next step. So I have a pile of little pieces of white cardstock that I use for this purpose. It's just in a little box, and grabbing it for doing this type of project works out absolutely perfectly. I'm just going to finish up the last few here and then move into the next step of the project. I mentioned earlier using a black marker because the stay humble and hustle hard sentiment really pokes up a little bit at the top and the bottom when I put my sentiment on it. So I'm literally just running through with a black permanent marker, and I'm just coloring it in at the top and the bottom. And what that means is, even though it's not completely perfect, it really is not noticeable once I add the sentiment on top. So the pattern paper is from the Kaisercraft workshop paper pad, and these were all in the back of several. I've got multiples of the paper pad, and I have now put them to good use. I decided to use some of my pattern paper strips to make up the base of the card, And so I have this yellow and grey paper. It's 1.5 inch strips, and I'm just cutting them down so that I can, again, mat them on some white paper and then put them down the left-hand side of a standard card base. I've also used some really sort of plain grey paper in 5.25 by 4 inches as a backing panel on the plain white card. I have not shown you the recording of all of this, but I will shortly show you the final result of the cards. I've managed to turn the 20 cut aparts into 20 birthday cards. I love the yellow, grey and black. I really think that means that they're very versatile. I have also added a couple of videos here that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.